to water my $41 and see if it multiplies to $82. What do you think? Maybe? Maybe not. Hello and welcome back to my kitchen. This is Michelle from Michelle's Life on a Repeat, and today I am talking with you about going into the grocery store and finding some beautiful orchids. Now, if it's your first time ever buying an orchid, you walk into the display and there's so many to choose from, and they all seem to be crammed together like they are this time of the year. It's Christmas season amongst the poinsettias. And today I walked into one of my stores that I know always orders a little bit different than the typical Phalaenopsis. I have been scouting the different stores in my town. I know one that's really good for prices. I knew that this store in my town is called a Safeway store if you're from the United States. Now, not every Safeway, I have 3 Safeways in my town, will have the same displays. So I encourage you, before you buy, go out and scout out your stores. And what you have to do is you really have to get in there, because I walked in and said, oh, beautiful. And your eye sees the tallest one. It sees the Phalaenopsis. And you think, oh, beautiful, they don't have anything else. And then you see the poinsettias and the roses and carnations. But when you begin to slow down, and you have the right as a shopper to slow down and look and analyze, I found some beauties today amongst the Phalaenopsises and the poinsettias. I came home with these 4 orchids. They are 4 different types of orchids. And I wanted to encourage you today, don't be afraid. There is a price tag involved, so you make sure you set yourself a limit before you go in. Scout your stores, look at the price tags. One store might drop the price $10 more down than the other stores will, so always look at your stores, compare them, and see what they offer. And today let's walk through how I went about choosing what I chose. First of all, I walked in and I saw a Phalaenopsis, and I knew I could take care of a Phalaenopsis. They are considered to be one of the easier ones. I knew that this Phalaenopsis, I've had it before in my collection. I've had it in white, and it lasts a very long time. And I knew that I could manage having this in my house and be okay with it. I looked at it, I decided first, I love the color. That's one of the first things that draws my eye. The yellow, okay, that's different than the white one I have at home. But then there's 4 yellow ones there. What do you do next? And again, this is for beginners. Some of you have asked me, how do you take care of an orchid? Or I got one as a gift and I don't know what to do. And I'm not an expert, but I'll show you how I find out information, okay? So on this Phalaenopsis, first of all, I love the colors. I love the blooms. And then I look down at what it's decorated in. Of course, they're going to make it all pretty that you want the fancy this, the bows and all that. That's all irrelevant to the growth of the plant. I noticed it had roots sticking up in the air. Those are aerial roots. That means it's searching the air out for moisture. I noticed it's cracked and it just fell off. Other pieces of it fell off. And then here I noticed that there's some falling off. But I took a gamble. I'm going to click that right off. I took a gamble because I know that generally when you come home with an orchid, it's not going to stay pristine. It's going to slowly decline. It is a flower. Just like other flowers, you bring home a bouquet of roses, how long do you expect it to last? Maybe a week, maybe a week and a half if you have a cool temperatured house. And I knew that this would last longer than that. So when I go into a store, I think to myself, what is my budget? Where will I put this beautiful piece? And can I take care of it? And if it dies, am I going to cry about it, or am I at a deep loss? And I always weigh that out with what else can I do with my finances? And Please know I have an orchid budget every month, and I've saved it up so that I could acquire these to make this video for you. Would I have gone out and picked this one just for the sake of my own home? Yes, I like this one a lot. I would. So what I did when I was there, I got past all of this fluff. I'm going to take it off at home and show you what's inside. Now, at first appearance, when I looked at her, I noticed that her leaf here has yellowing through it. And I noticed that the bottom one is kind of limp. If there were other choices, I probably would have picked another one. But those are the negatives so far that I've seen about this plant. The roots are kind of coming off, they're drying out. They're not going to last, those aerial roots. And she's got some yellow. It might be fixable, it might not be. It's a gamble that I will take. But while I'm in the store, I take that stake and stem and I lift that pot right up. People look at me, it don't matter to me. You're putting out the money, you enjoy it. And I spin it around and I see how many roots look like they're not dead yet. They'll be gray if they need water. They'll be green if they were just watered. If they're flat, there's a good chance it's dead already. This media that they put this in at the nursery was bark. I use bark in mine when I bring them home, so there's a good chance this won't go downhill, because anytime you change the media that it grew up in, it doesn't like it. It goes, ooh, it just doesn't feel right. I don't know. And sometimes it will drop its roots and die back those roots and have to grow new ones. But you just work with it. So if it's already in bark and you know you're putting yours back in bark, there's a good chance you won't lose too many of them. So I did that. I looked. I'm at home now, so I'm taking out this decoration. It's not going to help the plant one bit. It just makes it look pretty, like, oh, I want to buy it at the store. So I'll go through this one here, and I took that out. Now I'm going to take the bow out so you can see, more clearly the plant, because that's what we're buying, is the plant. The containers, if you don't like the gray that it is, and the one right next to it is pink, just swap them. This says it's a Benny Queen. I will look that up. That gives me information, because what I'm going to do with these others, I don't know what they are per se, but we're going to look them up online and see, what do we know about that? How does it like to live? Does it like to live in a cold environment, a very hot and humid environment? Does it like to live room temperature? Does it need so much light shining in that in the Pacific Northwest I'm going to have to blare some studio lights at it? Yeah. These are things you think about when you go to the store. But you're just starting. Don't stress yourself out. So now I will pick this up, if I can, here. And I see, aha, it's not fully in bark. It was topped off with bark. There is a moss in there. So that moss is dried out, and it's also suffocating the roots that are close in the middle and the core of the plant. So this will have to be repotted. Now, some people choose not to repot it while it looks glorious. So I will put this here, and I'll think about whether I want to repot this sooner or later, because it has a little bit of wilt and yellowing in the bottom leaves. It's already telling me that those roots in the middle might be compromised. They might be squeezed so tight that not enough airflow has allowed them to dry out and suck up water, and dry out and suck up water in the proper cycle that it needs to. And so there might be dead roots in there. So what I will most likely do with this beautiful Phalaenopsis is take apart the bark, open up and take out the sphagnum moss, and if there is a core in there, I will take that out and I will pot her back up in bark, because that's what I have and that's what she's used to. I have a choice of doing it now or when she's done blooming. She might not be done blooming and showing off her beautiful flowers for 2 more months. So there's a gamble involved. But let's move on to the next orchid. The next flower I came across stood up proud and tall, and I knew that they rarely have these in the stores that I go to, so I thought I'd grab one. Let me show you close up. She has maroon, a magenta pink, and then a little orange with yellow dots around it. Sometimes colors are hard to see. But as you notice, I chose her and she still had, let me see if you can see that. She still has a bud that might open. She obviously has two dead buds, one that fell off just now, one here that will never open. And she also has a dead flower already, right here. But there was no other ones like that. It just fell off in my hand. But because there was no others there like this, I said, I'm going to bring her home because obviously it always says an exotic orchid. Yes, here's an exotic orchid. They all seem to be exotic. But she has a bow, and we'll take out the fluff. We'll lift her out of the pot. And I see that all this stuff is just fluff. Okay, and I see she has a big bulb and it's wrinkly. That means she needs water. She is thirsty. That's the bulb that this spike is growing out from, this big tall one. She has another bulb in the back, which is smaller than the one I just showed you. That is an older bulb. That may be her first or second bulb. Most likely not her first. First one's probably buried under all of this. But we'll take a peek at her. I'm going to open her up. I'm going to pull her out. And I'm going to see. I was given most likely a dud. So there's a good chance off the bat she's not going to make it. There's all this dirt that came out. It smells like old garden dirt. It's falling right as we speak. And you'll get home and you'll go, man, I got a dud. It happens. I couldn't lift this out at the grocery store, but I have a beautiful orchid to work with. So she's got really, really fine roots. See here? Here is the original first bulb that she grew when she was a baby. And it is dead. It will never grow any bigger. The next one was the last year's previous. So the year afterwards, it grew bigger than the first one. That's a good sign. She won't grow any bigger, but all of the nutrients that are stored up inside of her, this whole plant is using. So that's good to see that this one is not dehydrated yet. And then you have the one that's actually producing the spike that has the flowers on the end. And out from underneath her, I don't see any fresh roots. There's a good chance this one won't make it. She does have moss all packed in from when she started as an infant. So I will have to go through and tease that out, and I will most likely have to baby this plant in a completely different media if I want the roots to continue to grow. But I bought her to show you that beauty on the outside does not always mean health on the inside. So do your best, but remember, it is a flower, and you bought it because you enjoyed what you were looking at. And every time I look at my orchids that are in bloom, I get a smile inside. It's like getting a hug. Orchid number 3, we have this beautiful purple and greenish brown orchid. You see that? I believe petulum, Zygo petulum. I think it's how it's called. Zygo petulum. And I know that the store that I went to has them shipped in every Christmas. They usually have them. And sometimes they have a small scent. Oh, that's pretty. This one has a hint of a light rose petal that's like far away enough that you can barely smell it. And a fresh air type smell. It's really pretty. And some of these orchids will only smell in the early morning or right after you water them, or in the evening. Some will smell all day long. So you get the beauty of that. If you're highly sensitive to smells, which I am, this one is not that offensive. I can't smell it unless I actually put my nose in it. She has, just by looking at her from the grocery store, I look in there and I can see that she has bark, a bark layer on top. I can also see that she has some roots. There's some yellow toned and green toned roots. That's a good sign. What I have read and what I know about Zygo pedalums is that they're really kind of picky. Some people just can't grow them no matter how hard they try. Some people like me have done this beautiful thing like I did last year, purchased one, and it never regained its life, never came back for me. And because on my channel, we never give up on life, ourselves, and on our orchids. But hey, we do the best. If it doesn't succeed, you toss it in the bin and you try again, right? So here I'm going to lift her out of this pretty decorative pot. That's a nice little pot. I probably will save that for a gift. Probably for my mama. Again, she is loaded up with beautifying stuff, pretty fabrics and all that. And I see that she has some yellowing leaves you should be looking for when you peek in at the store. If you see a bug, run. Put it back. You don't want it. You probably don't want any of the plants from that store. So look around. Look in the soil. I can stir this around a little bit and it's loose bark. I'm going to see if I dump some of it out, how much falls out. I'm doing this because I'm not ready to transplant her yet. And I know that Zygos are really picky. They don't like their roots touched too much. So it looks like she needs a good drink. But do you see how the roots are coming off? And they look really good, I think. What's in here, I won't know until I open her up. Here, I don't think I'm going to transpot her. I just want to see what the condition inside is like before we saw the others. Ah, look at that. That's good roots. Mama's happy about that one. I gave her water while I was out returning the other one. So I will gently put her back in. Tell her, good girl. And I will leave her be until those flowers are done doing their beautiful happy dance, okay? But the gamble that I took with getting this was that I will enjoy her for at least 2 or 3 months, and I will keep trying and keep loving on her, and maybe next year she will bloom again. If she doesn't, will I quit? No, because I love the Zygos so much, I'm going to try again. For those of you who are new, we have here one pseudobulb, then it progresses to a bigger pseudobulb, and then it progresses to the one which is blooming, which is holding all the blooms right now off of it, the third one. So that tells us that she is at least 3 or 4 years old, and every year they should be getting bigger. So if I did things right next year, the bulb should be a little bit bigger and so forth. But off to the side, I see here, this is the one that is growing, that has this beautiful flowers coming off of it. I see that this is all new growth. It's healthy, it's strong, and it's attempting to grow again off the side of this root. So it's already working on its the next year. So I'm excited about that. If I treat it right, I'm hoping that we will see this for a long time. We are down to number 4 on our 4 more from the grocery store. Here we have this beauty. I saw her across the aisles pushing that cart and my eyes were locked on. I'm like, I got to have that one. She is pretty. I reached out and I grabbed her. I didn't care what anything else looked like. And then I, composed myself. Actually, the clerk came up to me and said, ma'am, you need to put your mask all the way on, because I had pulled it down a little bit because my glasses fogged up walking from the cold to the warm store, and I couldn't see anything, but I saw this, so I was like, I gotta see that. Oh, must have that pretty orchid. So here she is. Pretty blooms. They're a white flower with purple spots, like almost like a leopard print. And then right in the middle is some yellow. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. So I saw that, said I must have it. And now let's take a closer look at what I actually purchased. We come with all this fluff. I'm going to lift her up out of the pretty pot. When I'm at the grocery store, I could peek in and notice that she was in bark. So yay, that's another one in bark that's used to bark. They have jammed this butterfly twig in there. So I'm going to gently lift it out. I might use it on some other display. They have jammed it in there twice. There's another gorgeous, but that's not what I'm showing you today. So what I want to show you is the roots. These on the top, they're dried out. Lots of them. But when they get a drink of water, we'll see what their true colors are. We also notice, when you look at it, that it has attempted to make another flower spike like this one. And it didn't succeed. Or it could have been last year's. But it turns yellow. It's not going to do anything. I will trim that off when I go to repot her. We notice that the pseudobulbs, they look different than the other ones. And in the back here we have pseudobulb, probably number 1 from the first year of growth, number 2 from the next year of growth, and then the one that's producing the flowers that you see. So we know it's about 3 years old. And I'm hoping I can keep her alive. But like my motto, you won't know if you don't try, right? So across the aisle, I saw her, said I want her. It's typical for some of these plants with these long, thin leaves to have spots on them. But if their spots are bumpy and they look like they might be a bug, that's no good. But check the leaves when you see them. Notice the difference in these two. This one has lines and ridges in the leaves. This one does not. Every orchid is a little bit different. Try to water her in the morning, let her completely dry. It might take about a week for her to fully dry. It might take 3 or 4 days, depending on how many fans I have going on in my room. But let's peek at her to see if she is worthy of staying in this. Now they have used a lot of old bark, so she's going to need to be replanted. You see how flat these are? They're most likely dead. But I will wait. These didn't come to life much when I watered them. I'm going to slip her back in. Now that I know she has just a bunch of dirt that's going to stay soggy and her roots are only so big, I'm just going to dump that out. It's like not pretty. That way she can drain, and I will research more about what to do with her. But it's okay to peek at your flowers and get an idea of how soon you need to rescue them. I'm going to let her do her flower thing before I go and change out the whole medium. I have returned from the store. I went in and returned the purple flower that had no roots, and it was so pretty, but it was not gonna last, not any way, shape, or form. And they offered me my money back or a new orchid. So let me show you what I chose. I chose my money back because, you know, it was $41. I didn't realize it when I put it in my cart, like, oh, I gotta have it. So I'll put that back in my orchid budget. You have choices. So I hope today that I helped you to make some choices a little bit easier. And on a final note, in case you did not know already, orchids, do not like to live next to your fruit bowl. They don't like the gases that come off of the fruit, and it makes the blooms die faster. In case you didn't know that,